Hey, what's going on everybody? Boilon here and welcome back to another video on Lord of the Rings Home. Today, we're going to be talking about it's going to be a theory crafting video, okay? Because that's what I meant to say. Obviously, there's not an insane amount of things to talk about in the game right now, but I've spent a little bit of time kind of rifling through LordofTheRings.gg. And I was just looking at some of the characters, and especially because in my raids right now, we just finished doing Chapter 2, Guild Raid Chapter 2. And I was thinking to myself about what other ways could we have fun and also beat the cave troll, and who knows, maybe someone's already tried it. So we're going to be talking about a particular strategy related to the debuffs of burns, poisons, and bleeds. That's what I meant to say. They do often the same kind of thing with being able to basically tick down an insane amount of damage. If you haven't seen my video where I did Chapter 2 when it first came out, and I was using Strider, and I burned the troll, and it did like well over 10,000 damage on difficulty 3, it got me thinking about, you can stack all 3 of these. I've seen this on my own characters. I've seen, at least I've seen burn and bleed, I think, at the same time, so I don't see why you can't have poison up. And so this could lead to an insane amount of damage on the troll. I want to talk about a specific set of characters that I'm thinking about, and I would love to know, especially towards the end, if anyone's ever tried this. So if you're ready to go, let's boil this down. Okay, that was a bit of a long intro, I admit. I want to start off with, and all of these characters are farmable, actually. So they are available in the game, and some of them actually fairly easily so. And the first one, and we're gonna start with, it's slightly themed. There's like a 2-part theme here, and so the first theme is goblins. We're gonna start with Goldburst. He is available in the arena store. He's probably going to be my next farm after Éomer. Actually, sometimes I'm even doing simultaneous purchases, actually. So I'm going to buy 5 more shards for him here. So he's just over 3-star for me. Usually because of my position in arena, I can buy both. I can usually buy about 10 shards a day or so. And so if he only shows up for 5, then I'll purchase some Goldbursts on the side here. And so I'm slowly bringing him up. And we're going to talk about Shagrid as well, because actually he's on this list too. So a lot of characters from the arena store, but Goldburst. So and I have some experience from the beta when it comes to the Goblin team, because back then you actually started with Goldburst, aka, I don't know, it was Goblin Batmaster, I believe that was his name, and Chef Krazga, aka Goblin Chef. I'm pretty sure you started the game with them. And so they didn't really change a ton with regards to their kit. And it just all relies on bleed. Especially for Goldburst, it's all bleed. So his basic inflicts 1 stack of bleed for 3 turns. Now, my only concern would be, of course, the same concern that you'd have for Haradrim, is whether or not the focus would be great enough when dealing with the cave troll to be able to land these things. Because you're very reliant on things like being able to land your debuffs. So 1 stack of bleed for 3 turns is quite significant. Now, I don't know which one. I'm pretty sure burn is the strongest, and then bleed and poison do less percentage damage. I don't know what the exact number is for bleed and for poison. I'm pretty sure burn is 10%. Let me know in the comments down below. It could be 5% for bleed and poison, but they do all stack, and that's why I was thinking about this. His special, now the goblins only get like 1 special move because they get 2 passives. So they're pretty basic characters, but special is on a cooldown of 3, and they're all very fast. All goblin characters have a very high speed. Attack all enemies for 180% damage and inflict 1 stack of bleed for 2 turns on 3 random enemies. If Chef Krazga is an ally, inflict 2 stacks of bleed instead. So again, this doesn't matter too much on the cave troll because it's just him. But yeah, lots of opportunity to add stacks of bleed. And of course, when all of the goblin characters die, they summon like a secondary minion, essentially, to keep themselves going. They're really not very good for campaigns because I wouldn't say they're designed to die, but they have mechanics for when they die. His other passive, though, on turn, attack enemy with bleed for 130% and inflict expose for 2 turns. This is pretty good. Again, if this can land, 2 turns expose is really good. And this is happening on every one of his turns. And with the lineup that I'm suggesting, the bleed should not be a problem. So that's Goldberg's, and we need to talk about Chef Kraska, because I think you'd probably want to use them side by side rather. Now, he is a bit of a later farm, so that is a little bit of a concern compared to the other characters on this list, which is a bit of a shame, actually, because if he was much earlier, I would have started on him a lot earlier, and sadly, I haven't put a lot of work into him. I unlocked him, and now he's like almost a 2-star, but I am going to start to farm it, because I think this is such a crazy combination of characters that could actually work. But I want to take a look. So he is a bit of a later farm, which again is unfortunate. His basic attack is interesting as well. It steals a random boon. Now, I don't know if this works on the cave troll for... I don't think it does. I don't think you can steal momentum or his enrage. I'm assuming you don't. If anyone's tried this, let me know in the comments down below. I'm just going to assume not. I am assuming boon means like the regular boons that we all have available to us. So that one's there. And I'm actually not thinking of using Great Goblin, though we'll maybe talk about this a bit later. Dig In, which is the healing special. It's quite substantial, 2,000 health and 14% of this character's max health. Now, goblins do have a lower base. They're very similar to hobbits. So as far as squishiness, yeah, their max HP is not very high. However, if you did manage to get them to a high star rank, this could still do a lot based on the max HP. But it also grants protection. And protection is very rare. There's only a handful of characters in the game that actually give protection, which is a flat armor buff rather than defensive, which for some people that's block in Marvel Strike Force. That's more common. Protection is not, or defense up, whatever you want to call it. It's not very common. And so this applies to 3 random Goblin squad members, and 50% chance to gain protection to 2 random non-Goblin Shadow allies. So all of the characters that we're going to be talking about in this video are all Shadow characters for the purposes of this skill. The other ones are really not that important down there. Goblin squad members gain 30% lifesteal while they have protection. But it's only 1 turn of protection, so it's a little bit unfortunate. That's going to go away pretty quick. But anyways, it's a low cooldown ability too on 3, given how fast that they actually move. Now the first character... After that, actually, we want to talk about... I'm going to talk about Grimpa very briefly, only because he's the only tank that you could consider using in this set of characters. Grimpa is very easily farmable in Guild Chapter 2, which is the same location where you would farm Naramiri, and you could grind him up in terms of his shard rank really quick. However, he doesn't really do any... He basically plays the role of the tank. He can gain protection on himself, which actually synergizes with Chef's passive, and he can inflict Weak-Minded, which lowers their resistance. And that could be the definitive factor in helping this all go through. He also has a passive here when hit by an attack, 35% chance to inflict Weaken. So if he's constantly tanking, they could be constantly getting weakened. This could be helpful quite a bit. Or even if he gets hit by AoE, because the Cave Troll does have a little bit of that, then that could be reflective of landing that weaken, and that could help. He doesn't really contribute to the sort of bleed, poison, burn stuff that we're talking about here. But you might need him for a tank purpose. Now, moving on to Shagret, because Shagret is on this list here. He's going to be the leader ability of this team that I'm proposing. Because when attacking a target with a Bane, the attacker gains 4% turn meter per Bane on the target enemy, up to 8%. If the attacker is from Mordor, gain up to 16%. Now, for the purposes of the goblins, that's going to cap out at 8%, and actually maybe even a little bit less, because actually no, level 6 is for Mordor only. That's fine, and level 5 is 1%. So I don't know where that's going to cap up at 7% maybe for the goblins, somewhere at level 4, because the rest of it requires green. Leader ability stuff. There is going to be another Mordor listed on here, but Shagret has bleed, like all over his kit. He's got basic bleed. He's got special, actually gains might to all squad members for 1 turn on a cooldown of 4. His splash of green gives poison, so he does bleed and poison, actually, in fact. If they're already affected by bleed, burning, or poison, it'll give an additional stack of poison. And you do want to have him with Grimlers kind of... Actually, you don't have to, because if we're just talking about the Cave Troll, then you might not need it, because it's just single target, and we're kind of going for the poison anyways. Don't really need the AoE. That's what happens when you have Grimlers. So you don't need it, but Grimlers does have more bleed as well in his kit, so all that could start stacking. So this could be one character that you could interchange. For sure, Shagret Goldber's and Chef is going to be on the top 3, and then there's like 2 rotating slots. Could have Grimpa as a tank, and then really that comes down to your 5th character. We're going to talk about Grimlers, though, of course. Now, he's farmable in the campaign. He's actually farmable fairly early on. I just didn't touch him, unfortunately, so... yeah, I don't know. His basic does more damage when they have Banes, but his... I was going to say special, but it doesn't. It's actually, well, special 2. So attack the target for 290 plus inflict 2 stacks of bleed for 2 turns. Now, that's quite a bit. It is on a cooldown of 3, which is pretty quick, so you would be able to apply this. The only problem here with Chapter 2, though, is that the order of operations are such as that when the Cave Troll is in his toppled stage, he doesn't tick the dot stuff before he gets up. He gets up, and then, I don't know, maybe he shakes off the bleeds and all that. It doesn't actually happen. But if you're talking about the stage basically from 100% all the way down to the topple stage, then that's where it would be important and where you'd be able to just shred him super quick in multiple phases. That's what I'm thinking would happen. Okay? Now, that means that you need to be able to maybe either slow him, because if you can slow them in the topple stage, they're very slow. Like you can get 6 turns in until he gets up, and it's insane. Like, I don't think it's calculated properly, but I said this in other videos. So we do need someone that has slow, and that comes from it comes from Uzhan. Sorry, not Rakma, but we'll talk about Rakma as well. Uzhan, aka Mordor Taskmaster, who is also the Mordor healer. On his basic, he does have a chance to inflict slow, which would be very helpful in the topple stage for the Cave Troll. He doesn't do any bleeds or anything like that. He does heal, and he grants concentration to all squad members for focus. So more focus, this would be very important to have, especially for all these characters that are basically trying to land bleeds, poisons, and burns only if we get to Rakma. So the goblins are doing bleeds, Shagrat's doing bleeds and poison, Grimlers does bleed, and Rakma is the final character that I want to talk about in this video. He applies Weaken on his basic, but everything is basic. Is into his specials where he inflicts burning for 2 turns on his special, which, knowing what I know from Strider, 2 turns of burning is 20% max HP damage, and that is a lot if it lands. I say if it lands because the troll does have pretty high resistance, so that's the one caveat here, and so I think that's why we would need Uzhan to have that concentration to make sure that these things are applying. And then its Putrid Gas inflicts Weak-Minded so it's actually, they're both available on turn 1. This lowers the resistance by 50%. So between this and having maybe concentration from Uzhan, all of this could be enough to start just mass applying these kind of debuffs. And a lot of them apply for 2 turns when you actually get them maxed out. If an enemy is burning, inflict 200. So this part's not important. It's actually not. The important part is just landing it. If you can land the burn, the bleed, and the poison, he's just going to take an insane amount of damage per tick because his max HP is so high and it's percentage-based damage. So I've mentioned a few characters here. We actually have a total of 7, so you would need to choose 5. And so I would probably, because they're very easily farmable, I would say Goldber's, Shagrat, Grimpa, Chef Kraz. So those 3 are very easily farmable. Chef Krazga is not, but I think you're gonna need some healing, right? You're gonna need to keep yourself alive a little bit. So I think those 4. I would love to have Rakma, but it's gonna be between probably Uzhan and Rakma. So you're basically trading off the concentration and more healing, which is obviously going to improve your focus, or Rakma, who's going to do more damage and possibly apply Weak-Minded. But I think that landing this will be difficult without the focus to begin with, and I know it's designed to have Mordor, and you could argue that you could just do Mordor, but the problem is that there is no true tank for Mordor, and so there's no real good way to keep the Cave Troll's attention, and I think that people will drop pretty fast if you just use a full-on Mordor team. That being said, I would love to hear some feedback from you all about whether or not you've used a Mordor team or a Goblin team in Chapter 2. I'm kind of looking at a hybrid kind of version where it's kind of Shagrat with the leader ability, and then we're just chucking some characters that you kind of need together. 3 goblins, Shagrat, and then 1 other Mordor character. Probably Uzhan to keep characters alive even more, but also have that concentration buff across the team. I think that would be really good, and I think that I would love to see it. If I could just, trial it right now, that's something that I would love to see. Let me know in the comments down below, though. If you have tried it, I would love to hear about it. If you have these characters and have done it, I would also love to hear about it. Feel free to DM me on Discord about that, because, yeah, this is just something I thought about. It maybe sounds a bit crazy, but let me know what your thoughts are in the comments down below. That's going to be the end of this video, and until next time, stay safe and healthy, and I'll see you all later. Boilon, signing out.